It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday. And indeed it is. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park studios of Money Radio 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. If this is the first time you're tuning into our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. How do they do that? They do that by listening right here. And it's not to me, it's to these extraordinary guests that I have on the show. So I am very privileged to have here in the studio with me, I've got Nicole Stec. She is the Director of Wellbeing for Banner Health. And it's so happy to have you here in the studio.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about living a healthier lifestyle.
Living a healthier lifestyle, and here we are in the month of September, and it is Healthy Aging Month. And how appropriate is it to have you here in the studio? And, you know, I asked you before you got on the show, the name Stec sounded familiar, and I happen to have your other half. You are the better half, of course. I had him on the show almost exactly 5 years ago. Where does the time go?
Yeah, it's hard to believe 5 years ago seems like a blink with, you know, as we talked about kind of just the pandemic, everything kind of seems like a quick blur.
It does. It really does. But what's really interesting, too, is both of you are in the healthcare field. And, you know, I'm always curious to how you guys met.
In a hospital.
Figures.
An anesthesiologist set us up. So it's been a great love story, and we look back fondly on all those memories of meeting each other. So yes.
Nice. Yeah. Was it a hospital here in town, or was it somewhere else?
No, it was actually a rural hospital in Yuma, Arizona, down the southwest corner. We were both working at the hospital there. I was working in corporate wellness, and he was.
Is that YRMC or?
Yes, yeah. YRMC.
Yeah, I remember that place.
Yeah, so that's where we met.
Very, very cool. So we're here to really talk about wellness, and this is something that you focus in on. And really, you know, I would love for you to just jump in and tell me, because this is what our show is about, healthy living. I mean, Health Futures. It's how to live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do this? Wellness.
Yeah.
So please, I'm going to turn the mic over to you. You know, really talk a little bit about what you're doing. I know there's a holistic approach to it. So
definitely. In my role at Banner Health as the Director of Wellbeing, my team and I are really responsible for the well-being of all of the team members at Banner Health. And so that's over 55,000 team members across 6 states, wow. Hundreds of locations when you think about hospitals and ambulatory locations that we have across those.
55,000.
Yes. And, you know, we get to do really just great and meaningful work for our team members and really helping them take care of themselves and be their best selves. Some of the things that we do include providing education, health coaching. We do some fun events, outreach, step challenges, and make sure that they have the resources that they need to stay well. We touch upon different pillars of well-being in our strategy, including physical, emotional, social, intellectual, and financial well-being. So all those dimensions play a part into our overall health. And really making sure we have the resources and the tools and education in those spaces for our team members to tap into those, depending on what it is that they're looking for to really enhance their lives. A lot of our work in the last couple of years has really been around the mental and emotional dimension of well-being, just with the strain and the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic on our healthcare workers, and ensuring that we have the support there in our facilities. We've certified hundreds of leaders in mental health first aid so that they can raise awareness for what is mental health, what is mental illness, what does it look like, and how do you help somebody? And so those have all been really meaningful and impactful programs that we've instituted in the last few years to really help our team members be their best selves to take care of all of our patients in our communities.
It's a lot, but I will say this. You know, I had the opportunity to serve on the board for Banner for the Alzheimer's Institute, the Alzheimer's Foundation, and also served as a benefactor chair for their foundation for 3 years. And back in my day, it was only 36,000 employees, so we're up to 55,000. It really speaks to the commitment to Banner. I mean, prior to you coming on board, did they have this type of program? Is this something new? I was not aware of something like this. This is really cool.
Yeah, so I joined Banner a little over 3 years ago, and my role was created to really implement this holistic strategy along with the tools and resources to help engage all 50,000 plus team members across the 6 states in well-being. Prior to that, we did biometric screenings, which are still a valuable tool to really check in on your physical health and what you can be doing. But all of these support resources and programs that we have available in the education space, along with our health coaches and coordinators that put on events and awareness opportunities, that all is in support of our team members, so that, they might have hypertension, but what can they do about it? What is the education there to support them? What are the resources? How do we get them to primary care providers to ensure that they're taking care of themselves the best they can?
So, I mean, obviously and I'm assuming you are embracing technology. I mean, you got 55,000 employees. You said over 5 states.
Six states. Yep.
6 states. You're not able to see all of them in person, and neither is your team able to. So, connecting. I mean, how do you do this? Is this completely volunteer? Or, how do you engage the employees?
Great questions. One of the major tools that we implemented a few years ago was what we call a wellness digital platform that connects all of our tools into one digital hub on a website or on a mobile app on your phone. And so you can access these tools 24/7 whenever you're ready and can access the tools. We have things such as mindfulness app within there. We have tips, we have education, we have health coaching, all accessible within this app, so team members can do that. It also syncs with fitness devices. So if you wear an iWatch or a Fitbit, it can track your steps and your activity level. And that's where we kind of get some of that fun gamification.
Yeah, you talked about step challenge.
Yeah, where we can do a step challenge, and it's all electronic, and you can see in your phone how you're doing compared to your peers across the system. Or potentially when we do challenges of facility versus facility, you can see how your facility's doing against another hospital or something.
Well, I have a daughter who's a nurse.
Yes.
Over in LA at Cedars-Sinai.
Yep.
And she refuses to take the elevators. She walks the steps, and I imagine a lot of nurses do.
Yes. Yeah, that's what we want.
Yeah, exactly. Curiosity, are you able to see that? And what's the most steps you've ever seen someone do?
Oh, man. I've heard over 70 or 80,000 from some of our team members during these challenges, but we limit the max that they can get credit for. So they're still like overachievers. 30,000 is the max that they get credit for on these challenges, but many do go well above and beyond.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten north of 20, but I've never gotten to 30. That is just really incredible.
Yeah.
So I love the engagement piece, and I mean, it really speaks to Banner's commitment to wellness and health for their employees.
Yeah.
Because, it's so important for them to be healthy. But you touched on something, really right at the beginning of our segment, really talking about behavioral mental health. And, it used to carry a stigma, but now it's actually much more accepting. So, I mean, I'm just curious how many people are dialing in for mental and behavioral health challenges because of what just happened and is currently happening 2.5 years after this virus came onto being.
No, those are great questions. And so we've always had a resource available, include our employee assistance program, where team members have been able to access mental health care up to 6 free sessions per issue per year from a mental health provider through that resource. Our organization actually sees a much higher utilization in our vendors' book of business for EAP utilization. It's at 13-14% versus 6% for their book of business. And so we do know that our team members, as well as their families, can access those resources, and they are. In the beginning of 2021, when we implemented on-site mental health counselors, as well as a virtual, more on-demand mental health counselor for all of our team members in our hospitals, as well as our ambulatory facilities, within the first year, we had over 30,000 team members touched by that service, whether it be through one-on-one support. Many of those
30,000.
30,000.
That's more than half.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, yeah.
I'm pretty good at math, right?
Yeah. No, we're quite proud of that. And just, through one-on-one support, Many times those counselors would go to team debriefings after like a critical incident or something traumatic happens. They're there to help support and facilitate a conversation and really help drive our team members to the resources they have available. And that's been really important to their healing.
No doubt. I mean, the thing that really fascinates me the most is it's not just for the employee, it's for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are helping that whole unit out. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we spend more time with our colleagues at work than we do with our own families, and especially during COVID. I mean, I can't imagine the challenges that we're going back at home from a lot of those healthcare providers in your hospitals.
Yeah.
Well, it goes fast here, Nicole.
It does.
We're down one segment. We got 3 more to go. Stick around. You listen to Health Futures. I got Nicole Stec here in the studio from Banner Health. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are in our second segment. If you are just tuning in, go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button. Right below is the radio button. You can check out this show and many, many more. So I am pleased to have in the studio Nicole Stec. She's the Director of Wellbeing for Banner Health. She oversees the health for 55,000 plus employees. That's a big, tall order for you. And in our first segment, we talked a lot about the holistic approach to aging. We learned a lot about what's happened with Banner through the pandemic and the mental health aspect. There was a lot you did share and unpack with our listeners and with me, and I really appreciate that. In this second segment, I really want to jump in and talk really about physical health. And, that was something that we talked about on a show a couple weeks before with Dr. Marwan Sabah, really talking about how important it is to have a heart health, because heart health leads to brain health. So please enlighten me and our audience about some of the work that you're doing with the employees over at Banner Health.
Yeah, definitely. When I think about the physical dimension of health and well-being, one of the first things that comes to mind is just the importance of physical activity. And I know sometimes exercise is sometimes the bane of some people's existence, is I have to get so many minutes of exercise in, but how do we make it a part of just your lifestyle, where you're taking the opportunity to ensure that you have activity in your day throughout the day, not just, an hour on a treadmill, or, you have to go to this class. It's how do you get yourself more active throughout the day and get those steps in little small increments versus trying to do it all at once. Especially as we get older, it's so important for not only our muscle health, but our bone health and our joint health to be physically active. The standard is really trying to get 30 minutes a day, but those can come in as small increments as 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be just walking or running. It could be dancing, it could be swimming, it could be gardening, it could be housework. I took the day off yesterday to run errands, and I did housework for a couple of hours, and I was worn out after about 45 minutes of, moving around the house, laundry, dishes, picking things up. And that counts as physical activity. And so we need to think about that as we begin to build out our day. What are we doing to make sure that we're getting activity in throughout?
Absolutely. Physical activity is so important. And, one of the things that we've learned over these years, most recent years, is how important core strength is, right? Because your core is really the center of your universe. And without a strong core, you could lose everything. You could have a disabling injury, too, without that.
No, that's a great point to make. And I think, sometimes when we think about our core health and we think about resistance exercise or strength training, we think, I have to go lift weights. And that's not for everybody. But, there's different things that we can do with just body weight exercises. Simply just doing push-ups, even if it's not the traditional push-up, maybe it's a wall push-up. It could be doing chair squats. If you're not able to do squats without some type of support, is to get up in your chair and do 10 to 15 repetitions of chair squats with some stable support of the chair and a table in front of you. Lunges. Those body weight exercises are just as helpful to helping to maintain some of that strength and that core musculature as it is to do some lifting of weights. So
No doubt.
Yep.
No doubt. I have a treadmill desk at home.
Oh, nice.
And I've been working from home a lot in these last 2.5 years. I'm embarrassed to say that the belt doesn't run very often, but I stand at it.
Yep.
And I stand at a desk for almost sometimes 10 to 12 hours a day. And one of the things that we've learned over the years, I've talked about it here on the show, is that sitting is really bad for you. It's kind of like, smoking, the equivalent of what they say, 15 cigarettes a day if you sit down at your desk. And it's so important to stand. I know that you're working with a lot of employees, and you have a lot of employees that are on the front line, obviously in the ER, OR, on the floors, but you also have a lot of admin people at Banner that are working, sitting at desks. I'm just curious, and I may be putting you on the spot. Has there been a lot of talk about, those desks that, stand up and go down, and what are we doing for those admin people that are sitting at a desk a lot?
Great points, Bob. Yes, we do have several thousand team members that work in either a remote or hybrid position. So they come into the office sometimes, and sometimes they're at home. In the last couple of years, it's grown quite a bit. And so we've offered classes ranging from desker size to, showing tips and short videos on stretching and things that you can do throughout the day. There's also an app embedded within what we have as Microsoft Teams called Breakthrough, and it actually you can set timers so it'll go off for just a minute throughout the day, maybe every hour, to engage your, standing up, stretching, engage the team member in some level of activity. We do have standing, they can be sit or stand desks. I have one at home myself, and I do like to pull it up for a few hours throughout the day. I usually intermittently bring it up and down depending on what meetings or conferences I have going on. But it is so important to stay standing because, as you said, sitting is the new smoking, as they say. And we are so sedentary in our culture in the last 10, 20 years, just with changes in technology and the type of work that we do.
You've really talked about the importance of physical activity. I want to do a deeper dive talking about nutrition, quitting tobacco, and the bane of all of our existence, alcohol. And many of us have been self-medicating, myself included, during these 2.5 years, and drinking more than I was before. But not since I started this Whole30 program. So I've cut out alcohol now for the last 27 days. I'm doing okay.
Congrats.
I don't have any withdrawal, and I wasn't drinking that much. I was drinking maybe a couple glasses of wine, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But I would love for you to share what your experience is and what you're doing with the employees over at Banner.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that has remain steady, especially as the pandemic has changed over the last couple of years. One of the main interests that we receive from our team members this year is to really expand upon the nutrition piece of what we're doing, because I think a lot of team members are really going back to what can I be doing to take care of myself, because now they have a moment to think about it and they have time to do so. And so we do offer a number of different educational classes on nutrition. We also, if you're a part of our employer health plan, we offer nutrition consult with a dietitian so that they could do that. We actually are very fortunate on my team to have a registered dietitian interning with us this semester, and so she is also working on a number of pieces in education in the nutrition space to help our team members become more aware of making healthier choices. What I can say about nutrition is just picking one thing to focus on at a time. It's so easy to get overwhelmed with I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Pick one thing, and I think one of the most important things you can do is making sure you're eating 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. There's no better way to get those vitamins and those nutrients than actually through fresh fruits and vegetables versus doing some sort of supplement. And that can really help to make sure that you're getting the necessary dietary fiber that you need every day. And really taking care of yourself and getting those fruits and vegetables in. I also would say, a heart healthy diet, low in sodium, less packaged foods, more fresh food, maybe less eating out. Also watching the types of fats that you eat, choosing unsaturated fats, which are coming from plant-based oils, nuts, seeds, avocados, fatty fish like salmon. Those are good choices of fats that you want to make sure you have in your daily diet. When it comes to the quitting of smoking and the limiting or not using alcohol, I would say with smoking, there's a lot of options that are available to individuals who are looking to quit. And just even after a day of quitting, your reduction in risk for several types of cancers, heart disease, lung disease, all those things begin to drop dramatically with the quitting of using of tobacco. I encourage people to talk with their primary care provider to talk about nicotine replacement therapy, support groups, and other forms of treatment that they could use to help them with that. And then the same goes for alcohol. As you were saying, in the pandemic, it was real easy for many adults to begin to consume more alcohol in that time, a lot of time spent at home. And also, now that we're getting back out into society, it's a very social behavior that many of us have. And so really paying attention to how much alcohol you are consuming. Women up to a glass of wine or 1 drink a day. Men, it's 2 drinks a day. And if you feel like you're probably drinking a little bit more than you should, talk to your primary care provider about some options that you might have to help with taking it back a notch.
No, great advice. And it's interesting. You talk about foods real quickly as we end the second segment and go to halftime. A couple weeks ago, I had Dr. Marwan Sabah here on the studio, and he was talking about the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, and one of the breakthroughs, or one of the things that they released in their studies, was processed foods contribute to Alzheimer's. Is that crazy? I mean, and we've all heard, Whole Foods, he was saying, that's where you need to go. Anything in a box, anything in a can, you shouldn't eat.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. There's been so many.
You know what? We got halftime here at Health Futures. Nicole Stec from Banner Health. We will be right back. Stick around.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you're just tuning in, we're in our second half here. I'm really pleased to have in the studio with me Nicole Stec. She's the Director of Wellbeing for Banner Health. And we have talked about a lot of different things, but mostly right now we've spoken about holistic approach to health, physical and mental health. And if you missed our first half, go out to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button. Third button down is radio show. And actually, it's the first button down. And you'll catch this show and many, many more. So when we left off in the second half, we were really, digging into, really the types of foods that you eat. And Nicole, I was sharing with you, I'd had Dr. Sabah on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about one of the announcements that came out from the AAIC, which is the Alzheimer's Association International Conference, was that processed foods can contribute to Alzheimer's. And he said you should go shop at Whole Foods and buy whole stuff. Don't buy it in cans or in boxes. And you were about to say, and I had to cut you off, we were at halftime, I would assume that you were going to kind of piggyback on what he said.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in complete agreement. You think about the phrase "you are what you eat," and it is really true. What we put in our bodies then begin to process and use and consume, and it impacts our overall health. And it could be going from brain health to heart health to any other types of organs and vessels that we have in our body. And so, to really think about the whole foods, whether it's going to, the Whole Foods store to get whole foods, but just even at, any of the grocery stores, is buying the fresh fruits and vegetables. When you're choosing grains, choose whole grains. That's, they're naturally more whole grain than they were before they processed them and made them white bread. It might taste better, but at the same time, it's stripping the bread of a lot of the nutrients that would come in the natural whole grain.
Exactly.
And so, it's definitely easier to consume some of that processed food because it's already there made for you. But I would really encourage, people to think about meal planning, thinking about just even, a couple of meals a week that you could maybe prep at the beginning of the week. Maybe it's Sunday or Monday that you like to go grocery shopping, get those ingredients, prep it, have it ready in the fridge. Maybe you put it in the freezer, and maybe make more than you need so that you can put leftovers in the freezer. And so then you have whole ingredients that you're using, not processed foods that you're just nuking in the microwave, but really making a point to meal prep to ensure that you're getting those whole nutrients you need.
Well, I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, you said this in the second segment. You talked about restaurants, right?
Yep.
You know, you can read the menu just like all of us do, but we have no idea what they put in them. We have no idea what we put in
Scary,
that
right?
food.
When you think about it, when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, when you really think about it, you don't know how much salt they're putting in it, how much
Mm-hmm.
oil's in there. You think you might be getting something broiled, but it might be a little fried.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much you don't know, and it's so important to really be cognizant of that. And look, my wife Susie, she's a health nut, and she, I know at times the waiters or waitresses are writing notes because she's telling them without this, without that.
Yep.
So that she can live a healthier, happier life.
Yeah,
It's just so important.
And most restaurants are very open to doing that for all of their patrons that come in. And so I think, it doesn't hesitate to ask and make, ask for something the way that you want it. I also think that eating out, especially, it's easy to do. It is expensive. And I think we're all kind of feeling it on the pocketbooks too. And so, maybe picking and choosing a couple times a week that you want to go out with family and friends, enjoy those great experiences that you have, but it's not necessarily an everyday thing that we all do. So
I had a doctor on the show many years ago say, never, ever go into a fast food restaurant. And I had an employee of mine listen to that show, and she said to me, she goes, I never go in. I just do drive-through. And I'm like, okay. So she took him literally, but seriously, fast food, I haven't donned a fast food restaurant in a very long time.
yeah, no, and when you begin to think about how some of that food is made, I remember years ago when I used to work with the military, I took a course from the military's, it was the Marine Corps, their dietitian for the entire Marine Corps. And she gave us a grocery store tour. And she
Semper Fi.
Yeah, Semper Fi. And she talked about how a lot of the different foods are processed and made, and then it was like, okay, I'm not going to buy that anymore, or I'm going to think about that twice before I buy that type of food, just because we're unaware as consumers. Marketing, they do a great job making all these foods look great and also taste great. So it's just, again, going back to the whole foods, the basics that our ancestors all came from. They didn't have grocery stores with all the packaged and processed foods like we have today.
There's a restaurant here in town. I won't mention it.
Okay.
But the ribs are out of this world. And they soak it, you ready for this, in bacon fat for 24 hours before they throw it on the grill. And the meat falls off the bone, and it is so delicious, but it is so bad for you. It is so bad for you.
Well, don't tell me where that place is. No,
but I think you would admit, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to have that once in a while.
Yeah, no, I think
you can't not have anything like that, right?
Yeah. I think it's all moderation. You've probably heard, the 80-20 rule, where 80% of the time you're doing the best you can to make the right decisions for your overall health and well-being, and then 20% of the time you can have fun. You can do something that's not quite in line with the best decision. I have young kids at home, and they like treats like ice cream or cookies or things like that, like all of us do. But what I tell them is it's a sometimes food. It's not an everyday food as much as we would enjoy it every day if we could. It's just a sometimes food, and that's about the frequency in which we give it is once or twice a week. And so
exactly.
Yeah.
I'll give you the name of the restaurant once we get off the
Okay.
show, because the ribs are to die for. So I want to conclude really talking about meal planning and prepping foods, and my wife is very good at that. My daughters have learned from her, because I have a daughter who's a speech pathologist, one that's a nurse, and they on Sundays are usually planning out their meals. They take with them, including my wife, they'll put in small baggies like celery stalks and carrots and healthy snacks, and have them with them. I mean, I would think that that's what you're advocating for your employees, is to be able to make those choices and not go to the vending machine or go to the convenience store and get that big gulp or a candy bar.
Yeah, and you can think of it as a form of self-care. When you're taking that time to meal plan for yourself and or your family, you're really looking at taking care of yourself and making things easier for you, because I think we could all, work on time management in some way, shape, or form. And when you have those healthier options that are easily available to you, it's a lot easier to make that healthier decision than, it would be to make the unhealthy decision to go use a vending machine. So
no doubt.
Yeah.
So I want to start this and then pick it up in the fourth
All right.
segment, is really talking about, a lot about Banner and the work that Banner does, and really talking about the importance of screenings, checkups, and the one that we all are trying to focus in on is how do we get more sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's tackle some of that now, and let's pick up on that on the fourth segment.
Definitely. I I know over the last couple of years, it's been hard for many of us adults to go get those regular screenings that we typically would be getting every year or should be getting every year, because the pandemic had limited the availability of a lot of those options for us. But when I started to look into a little bit of, research about how many people actually get their annual wellness exam a year, less than 10% of Americans meet with their primary care provider once a year.
Isn't that crazy?
That's insane to me.
Less than 10%.
Yes. And so, one of the biggest things that we advocate for is encouraging, our team members as well as any of our family members is to go get that just one annual wellness exam every year, because you can learn so much about yourself and get so many of the resources that you may need to help prevent other health conditions later on.
So I'm going to ask you a question, because we're going to pick up on the rest of this in the fourth segment. You mentioned health plan. Banner has a health plan?
Yes.
And Banner's health plan is open to the community at large, or just to the employees?
We are part of the health plan as an employer group. We do subscribe to the Banner Aetna health plan, but that is available to all employers and to people in the community as well.
Nice. And you talk about these screenings, more importantly, the annual physical visit. I know this because I was engaged to work with an MA plan where their numbers were less than 30%. It was like 26%. You know what? I'm getting the sign. Third segment is out. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm Bob Roth. I've got Nicole Stec here in the studio from Banner Health. Stick around. We got one more segment. We'll be right back.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we are in our fourth segment. If you're just tuning in, I got Nicole Stec here in the studio. She is with Banner Health. She is their Director of Wellbeing for over 55,000 employees, which is phenomenal. I mean, you got a lot of people that you're accountable to, and they're accountable to you back. But when we left off on our third segment, we were just talking about, Banner having a health plan, and it's underwritten by Aetna, and it's available to the employees. It's also available to the community at large. And, one of the things that, you'd said was that in your health plan, 10%, roughly about 10% of the members are actually having annual exams. Did I get that right?
That's a stat in general from the United
States.
Oh,
that's
so
a
it's
stat.
Not necessarily our health plan.
Okay. It's a stat in the United States. And what I was sharing with you, I was engaged by an MA plan, a Medicare Advantage plan in the Midwest. We were going to do an engagement with them to help their members get in to see their primary care physicians. And their number was about 23% or 27%. I can't remember. And they wanted to get to about 70. Yeah. Because as a health plan, you don't know what you got unless your members are going to see their primary care physician, because you don't know what you're treating, and you have no idea what their health care is. And you have a vested interest as a plan in that member. So it's very, very interesting. So obviously, your position is so critical and vital to getting the employees to get in to see their primary care.
Yeah, we do that throughout the year in a number of ways and campaigns that we have internally for our team members, really encouraging them to take care of their preventative health. And that's going to their primary care doctor to get that wellness exam. That wellness exam is so important to identifying not only potential health issues, but screenings that you should also, additional screenings that you should be getting, adult vaccinations. When I think about the older population, I think about shingles. I also think the flu shots coming here right around the corner too, because we're entering flu season, and how important those are to really your overall preventative health and avoiding, more significant chronic conditions. Just the checks on blood pressure, cholesterol, your weight. that's where your provider can begin to give you recommendations and next steps to helping to mitigate the risks of those. Or, maybe there's treatment that you need at that point in time, but you wouldn't know unless you went in. Unless you're doing
Right.
it on your own. Maybe you're great at checking your blood pressure on your own, but not everybody has a blood pressure monitor at home to do that. So,
Well, blood pressure monitor, and let's face it, I mean, you need labs.
yep.
The labs tell everything. I
Yep.
mean, you can detect A1C irregularities, you can detect, cholesterol issues. There's so much that you can detect through labs.
Yeah.
So, for our general public, obviously, there's a lot that Banner does. And I know this having been on the board. There's a lot of urgent care centers. There's a lot of outlets. You guys are building hospitals. You're building one in Scottsdale now.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Banner was never in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And they're taking over the world. But what as listeners can do, what benefits can they get through Banner?
Definitely. If you're looking for a new doctor, or if you haven't, been to your doctor in a while and you want to start fresh, I encourage you to go to bannerhealth.com, and you can look at locations, and you can begin to look at the different types of locations that we have. Maybe it's urgent care because you have something like immediate that needs to get addressed. Maybe you're looking for a new health center. We actually just opened our first Banner Health Center Plus in Glendale, just north of the 101, where that is really a one-stop shop for not only primary care, but it has specialty care. It has imaging. It has labs. It's a one-stop shop for the patient to ensure that they can get all the care that they need right then and there, versus having to hop to one location to another, just to get the results that they're looking for in their health. And so that, I really encourage that. But we also have Banner Health Centers across the Phoenix market that I've encouraged anybody to go to. I go to one in North Central Phoenix, and it's great. And so that's where you can go on the website. You can also go to our social media handle at @banner_health, where you can also find additional information and tips on living well throughout the year.
Nice. So we talked about in the third segment, but we didn't dive into it, sleep.
Yes.
And how important sleep is. And I think all of us feel like we're in a deficit. And as I look over there, I see someone yawning. We're all dealing with, sleep challenges. And certainly we talked about it in the first segment. A lot of people were self-medicating through the entire COVID process or COVID pandemic. Help me and our listeners understand, how do we do better with that?
Yeah. Well, first, you're not alone. Most, over half of American adults actually struggle with sleep at some point or another throughout the year. Sleep is incredibly important, we know, not only because, it helps our energy level, but it helps with our focus, our ability to problem solve, make decisions, just general fatigue. I think, especially if you're driving at night and you're tired, not a good place to be, because many times you really kind of feel the onset of how fatigued you are at that point in time. Sleep itself, not everybody needs, you hear that 8 hours, but not every adult needs 8 hours, to be, have quality sleep. I think some of the more important things that we can consider is having consistent bedtimes and wake up times. That plays a huge role in our overall rhythm and cycle that we have for our body. And so really trying to keep a consistent bedtime as well as wake up time is actually really good for your sleep hygiene. Another element that I think many of us are guilty of at some point or another is also the screen time right before bed, whether it's TV, computer, tablet, phone, you name it. How can we limit some of that screen time in that hour to 2 hours prior to going to bed? Maybe it's picking up a book or a magazine or doing something, with your eyes that's less stimulating than that screen time. And the last thing I would say about sleep to really help with that is, I've talked about it earlier, but exercise. Daily exercise helps really with ensuring that our bodies can rest when it's time to rest. And so I encourage people to make sure they get some daily activity to help with their sleep as well.
Nice. And, one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with is apnea. And if you have a partner that you sleep with, they can tell you, snoring.
Yes.
and you know what? There are aids out there, and there are ways to avert having apnea. Because the problem with apnea, and I used to have it, I still have it a little bit, but not nearly as severe. But you don't get to the the REMs. You need to get to that second and third stage of sleep, and if you're stuck in REM 1, you're not getting rest.
Yeah. It's again another reason you should go see your primary care provider is to, be appropriately diagnosed with sleep apnea if you have it, but also if you have it, make sure that you're getting that checked on a regular basis to ensure that you're getting the appropriate treatment and ensuring that you're getting good quality sleep and oxygen throughout your body.
So as we wrap up, and it's hard to believe, we only have a couple minutes. I want to talk about managing stress, and then if you have time, is there a question I haven't asked or any final tips you want to leave our listeners?
Yeah. Managing stress, I think that's something we're all faced with on a daily basis of, in some way, shape, or form, whether it be physically, mentally, financially, you name it. I think we're also bombarded with a lot of news, especially in the last few years.
I always say turn off the TV.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
it's really limit. You're going to find out the information one way or another, and it's not going to change too much from day to day. And so,
exactly.
Limit, that news time. I think other great ways of coping with stress, exercise, journaling, connecting with friends and family. It's just scheduling some time to call a family member or a friend that you haven't talked to in a while. And just that conversation and connection with somebody else is so important to helping alleviate your own stress, but also really help to continue to build and nourish your network of, the community that you have surrounding you. And so that's one of my favorite go-tos when I'm struggling with stress is just to have somebody to go talk to. And just had a couple of phone calls yesterday on my day off, so it was great just to have that connection with friends.
So any final thoughts, any questions I haven't asked that you want to leave our listeners as we conclude? There's so much I could talk to you about, Nicole. We should do a whole nother hour.
Thanks. I think just, recognition that, well-being is more than just your physical health. There's all these elements to it. And, one of the great resources that we have in the Phoenix metropolitan area is Banner Health as being one of the largest healthcare system. And our website, we have
largest employer, too.
Yeah, largest employer as well.
In our
private
state.
Employer. And we have also a great healthcare blog on our website where you can subscribe to it. You can get newsletters. You can also, again, the handle at @banner_health on Instagram. You can get those tips. I like to check the stories. I use IG. So it's just nice to be able to see some of that information flow through on a regular basis from a trusted provider.
And you also have a phone number, 877-556-0615.
Yes. And that is our call center. So if you'd like to set up an appointment or find a provider, they will be ready to help you.
Nicole Stec, it's really a pleasure to meet you. And you truly are the better half. Would you please send my best to Bruce? And seriously, you are doing some great work for the 55,000 plus employees. And it's nice to know that Banner's made this kind of investment and has stayed this connected. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday. Thank you, Nicole, for joining me today.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.